is dead. Hell yeah. I have been waiting for this moment over a decade. 10 years ago, actually more than 10 years ago, 12 years ago, Batman Arkham City plagued video games, right? We were told this was the greatest game ever made, the game of the year contender, one of the best superhero games ever made, the best superhero game with the best combat system ever, in spite of the fact it wasn't even as good as the previous game. It had the greatest ending in video games. The Joker actually died. Oh man, how are they going to make new stories in this continuity without the Joker, the most iconic comic book villain of all time? How is Batman going to cope without fighting the same villain over and over and over and over again, right? How is this going to work? What is the future of the Batman Arkham games? I don't talk about this a lot, but I really do have a deep loathing hatred for all of the Arkham games. Not so much the original. I think that one's like a solid 6 out of 10. I've played through it several times. As someone who grew up watching the cartoon, it's not that bad. Okay, it's a solid license game. I never had any ill will towards it, but people really did try to paint it as this like absolute masterpiece, this absolute banger, right? This absolute just 10 out of 10 thing. And like with each of the sequels, the games got worse, but the praise and the hype and the enthusiasm kept growing. It's shocking to me seeing how now people will like look back on Arkham Knight fondly and say it was like, oh, the last good Batman game, when in reality it was like a complete mess, right? Arkham Knight was a disaster. Okay, it was more of a Batmobile game than a Batman game, right? They completely had something that could have been promising with Arkham Asylum, and by the end of the trilogy, everyone was done with it. Everyone was bored of it. It was bad. Okay, the audience wasn't admitting it, just like they don't like admitting that Batman is an ineffectual hero who does nothing for the good of Gotham. But there was this very big push to gaslight people into thinking that Rocksteady was a top tier studio. The developers behind Arkham City were working on a new game, and everybody was going nuts. Oh, could it be a Superman game? Could it be a Flash game? Could it be a Justice League game? Like, everybody's imaginations are going wild. Nobody wanted anything unique and creative from the studio. No, 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 no. They wanted more superhero slop. They wanted to just guzzle down more of Rocksteady's generic press square to win action-based combat system, right? They wanted more of the same, but with a Superman skin, right? I remember seeing so many people just be over the moon, like, this is gonna be the greatest game ever. Superman, Rocksteady, it's gonna be amazing. It's gonna sell so many copies. It's gonna be the first ever good Superman game. And we did not get it. Instead, what we were given is some gas live service slock. One of the worst examples of this service I've ever seen, with just microtransactions, with every character placed the same, and just resulting in one of the most underwhelming experiences in gaming history. I would be shocked if Suicide Squad is not regarded as a studio killer, as one of the worst games of the year, and something that will probably haunt the DC video game scene for years. I think a lot of people are getting hung up on the whole Kevin Conroy thing. Oh, how could they do this? The Batman with it was, people are saying it's disrespectful. It's a character, it's acting, it's not a big deal. The real problem is that the game just isn't very good. The story isn't very good. The dialogue is cringe, the gameplay is cringe. I saw so many people desperately try and damage control this. Damage control Gotham Knight, damage control WB in general. But they are, I think, becoming the worst publisher of the decade. seeing what they've been doing with these properties, seeing them do with things with properties that I actually like Mortal Kombat. Seeing them drop the ball over and over and over and over again. Back in the day, they were like a legit solid. I say back in the day, like 10 years ago was back in the day now. Back in the day, they were a legit solid publisher. Like, I didn't love Arkham Asylum, but it was okay. Actually, I think Square Enix published that. Whatever. They produced Mortal Kombat. That was great. The first reboot, 9. But it's been like the first Injustice was okay. Like, but over time they've just kind of like slowly slid into this like mindset that like we have all these licenses, we can do all this stuff. Like, let's produce gas. Let's do this, right? Let's produce gas. And they have essentially torpedoed every major franchise they own out of this pursuit for this model, right? Mortal Kombat has been infested by gas. DC stuff has been infested by gas. Multiverses, I think, was going in that direction before it was shut down. Funny how like nobody talks about that anymore. How that was like supposed to be the Smash Bros. Killer a couple of years ago, and now it's like straight up done, and like no word on when it's coming back, and like people are pretending like, oh, Multiverses, what's that? We never said it was a Smash, like ridiculous. The Power World of like 2022 or whatever, right? They had all this like goodwill with fans. I was praising them. They were doing pretty good work, like consistently getting Nintendo releases out. Even Mortal Kombat 1 got a Switch release, right? Like, they were, I think, for a while, like, probably my favorite Western publisher. Not that that's saying a lot, but, like, they were making surprisingly good strides with video games, right? And to see them go down this direction is really disheartening, to say the least. Like, I think it was perfectly possible for them to actually improve on the Batman model. Like, realistically, I think if they went with another hero, someone more obscure, someone that's been less overexposed, had their own take on them, like innovated, like evolved, redid the combat system so it was less like something completely different, improve the boss fights, incorporated more aspects of like the DC lore, like evolve, like just do more things with the franchise, right? They could have done so much, I think, so much good, right? And they just completely dropped the ball at every turn, right? Every single turn. It was blunder after blunder after blunder after blunder. Who seriously thought that, like, the company that made Batman, everyone's telling us to make Superman. What if we make a Suicide Squad? Like, who even are the Suicide Squad? Like, it's 2024 and I still don't know. Like, I know Harley Quinn's in it. Like, I know the Shark guy. Like, who else? Like, who else? Like, what do they do? Like, what makes them interesting? Like, they're fighting the Justice League. Why? Because they're evil? Like, like, who wants to play that? Like, the characters aren't interesting, right? Other than, like, proving that, like, the Justice League must not be all that powerful if it's, like, some psychotic bitch with a baseball bat can just clobber their head straight open, right? Like, what exactly make the Suicide Squad interesting? Like, what was so amazing about them that WB really thought, seriously thought, that this would be like an interesting thing to make a game about? Like, there's essentially nothing. Like, I guarantee you, I'm sure this has been confirmed, but it's worth talking about. I guarantee you the reason this game exists is because the Suicide Squad movie was expected to be a huge hit. It was expected to be like highly successful. It was expected to kick off like the DCU, or whatever. It was supposed to be a big thing, right? They got all this talent behind it, yada yada yada. Like, they were doing all this. When the movie came out and flopped, just like every DC movie that is a Joker, right? When this thing came out and flopped, like, they had to just keep going with what they had, I guess. Like, I'm not sure, like, what they were planning to do to salvage this game. I don't know how much money and time they sunk into this because it's been like 8 years since Arkham Knight. No, wait, 2024. No, it's been like a decade. 9 years. Yeah, 9 years since Arkham Knight, if I'm remembering right. 9 years since the last Batman game. It's taken them to pump this out. One of the biggest train wrecks we've seen all generation so far, I would say. Arkham fans are upset. Like I've seen them seethe on Twitter about the ending and like just the gameplay loop and the writing. There's so much wrong with this game that I'm honestly kind of at a loss for words for it. Like I might actually watch like some YouTube compilation fails to get like a better understanding of what actually happens in this plot. But like, yeah, the way things are looking now, this is the end of the Arkhamverse. Because one of this game's big claim to fame was that like, ooh, it's set in the Arkham universe. This is the same Batman. We're not doing any of that alternate universe stuff. Like this is the Arkhamverse Batman. But like, didn't Batman retire at the end of Arkham Knight? Like again, Arkham Knight was like such a mess that I honestly don't even remember. But like, didn't he retire? Like, wasn't that the entire point? That the Batman died. I don't understand why they keep doing that. Ooh, Batman's gonna die. No, he'll be back next week. Like, why? They really thought that would get people like pre-downloading this game, like hype for this nonsense. Is that like, oh, Arkham versus back. Oh, he's being voiced by Kevin Conroy. Oh, this is his last role ever. Oh, this is gonna be the grand culmination of the Kevin Conroy's voice acting career. It's trash. Like it is just plain trash. I've heard speculation that like Conroy died during recording or something. I remember seeing leaks about that, about how that he died at the worst possible time or something. Like I heard speculation they were going to use AI to try to finish it up or something. I don't know how true that is. That sounds like complete bonk. And honestly, like I don't really care, but it's like it's worth mentioning because I don't know. Like I was really tired of seeing like Conroy trotted out whenever WB needed like some hype behind a Batman product. Like oh, Kevin Conroy is here. Oh man, he's in multiverses. Oh man, he's coming back for the Killing Joke. All these like mediocre like adaptions and films and like versions of the character, like just shoved in Conroy's voice just because he was the iconic voice for '90s kids, right? For like millennials, like the target audience for this stuff. Because apparently all of us are man children, right? Like this is why Zoomers don't respect you, right? Like grow up a little bit. Like Kevin Conroy, like enough. Okay, it wasn't even like when Arkham Asylum first came out. That was played out. Like Razorfist talks about this a little bit. How the gaming media presented this narrative that like this is the first time Conroy has returned the role since the Batman the Animated Series. Not true. There have been other video game adaptations that featured his voice and Mark Hamill's, right? Like it was such a marketing ploy. They really wanted to tie in the Arkham games with the Batman the Animated Series universe, like simply to get that hype, simply to get get that momentum, and then they like splintered off and did their own thing, right? And their own thing was terrible. Arkham City was a disaster. Arkham Knight is legit one of the most frustrating things I've ever played. Like I did not want to play a Batmobile game. Okay, like I can't imagine who came up with the idea. Like, let's play a game where you drive around in a car and occasionally you press a button and the guy gets out and he solves a puzzle and then gets right back in. We have to give a fake out death to this car because you're gonna get attached. Like, no, come on. Yeah, the car is equipped with like rubber shields, so when you run over pedestrians, they don't die. Like it fires rubber bullets, so it doesn't kill them. Right? It's like something out of a Yakuza game. Like it's that bad. Like Batman never killed anyone, just like Kiryu never killed anyone. Like maybe that's Batman's real secret identity. Like the whole Bruce Wayne thing is a ruse, and it's actually like Kazuma Kiryu, like after his Hawaiian vacation. Like, just a thought. But anyway, it's like, how exactly are you supposed to take this seriously? Like, really? Rocksteady were always frauds. Like, I would compare them. Let's see, what's a good example? Uh, um, what's a good example to compare them to? Yeah, I would compare them to Avalanche now, right? Where they are a mediocre studio that got a hold of a popular license, and suddenly, because of that license, they got like a lot of prominence and a lot of attention, right? And because of that license, they got a lot of sales. Now, they aren't particularly good developers. They didn't produce a particularly good game. It doesn't have good storylines or acting or gameplay or anything. Like, Arkham Asylum is like a couple hours long, right? Not a couple of hours. It's like less than 10, I'm sure. Like, Arkham Asylum is super disappointing, right? Like, these games are not fantastic, but because of the license, they got a lot of attention. They got a lot of praise. Oh, it's like you're playing as the Dark Knight. Feel like you're Batman. Like, those marketing slogans were so obnoxious. And it's really nice to see with the Suicide Squad performing as poorly as it is that it is uh, they're not being repeated. If anything, game journalists are being surprisingly based, talking about the state of the game. Like, for some reason, they're actually one of the biggest advocates for like talking down to it and like disrespecting it and stuff like that. Like, I don't know like what's going on between WB and like game journals, but it feels like there's some friction there. Like, they're not willing to shill for the game, and that's really weird considering how heavily they promoted like the older games. I guess the game is such a disaster that like everybody in the community is in that industry is just kind of rallying behind it, right? Like, you don't often see them like outright condemn a AAA game like this just before launch, but they're doing it. They're doing it. Like, and yeah, I imagine they're understating how bad the game is. It's just one of those situations where I'm very, very interested in seeing where this goes and how this develops because the way things are looking now, I expect we might actually see like Rocksteady just fall off the face of the earth. This might be the last major product they ever produce. The creatives have left, the founders have left. Like, it's just a studio that's known for like making Batman games now, and they now just shot their one lucrative IP in the foot. Like, nobody's gonna trust them again after this. Nobody will want them to have Batman again after this. And like, because it's a licensed character, there's nothing stopping WB from just going like, okay, we're gonna take it somewhere else to someone who actually knows what they're doing, right? And they just go to some other company and they produce like an actually good game, maybe. Like I find it very, very difficult that to believe that like someone would struggle to fix the mistakes with these games, but like, we haven't seen it happen yet. We haven't seen a WB tell themselves that, like, maybe we should produce more single player games with superheroes. Maybe we should, like, excel in that niche. No, they keep doing this thing where they push the gas. And the big thing that, like, really, really makes me think that gas is never going to take off is just seeing how many of these projects are just like completely and utterly flopping with like absolutely no player bases. You have like Gotham Knights, this Mortal Kombat 1, like the list goes on and on and on, right? Like, there are a lot of gas projects that just come out and just get like bombed. Babylon's Fall was like one of those rare few platinum games that people actually talked about in the modern era because it was so terrible. Because that like Platinum keeps pushing that thing. Actually, that's one of the big reasons why Platinum is doomed as well, is because they seem to be chasing the dragon as well. They seem to be wanting to push gas. Like, I imagine that's why Hideki Kamiya left, because he knew how bullshit it was, right? Like, he knew how ridiculous it was to ask for people to like perpetually pay for more content through the game. Like, it is the worst idea in the world, and yet they keep pushing it. They keep trying to normalize it. They keep trying to make it a thing. And it keeps resulting in epic L's, right? There is no salvaging gas. DLC took off because it was really easy for people to, like, make a $60 purchase and then play through the game and then just be like, oh yeah, yeah, I'll pay for an expansion, sure, I'll pay for extra costumes, yeah, whatever. Like, initially it was fine, and then, like, developers started getting greedy. People started pushing back against it, and then they thought, like, developers thought to themselves, like, oh, we'll make everything DLC, so nothing. Gamers will have to get used to paying for all this content, and then, like, people just stopped buying their games. Right, there was a breaking point eventually, and that's really interesting to see that happen now with WB, where, like, after several years of bad decisions, like, people are finally pushing back against their nonsense. Rocksteady is in the same boat. People are finally pushing back against their nonsense. And that is very, very interesting and refreshing to see. I don't think I've seen. Let's see. I don't think I've seen any, like, hope for the future of the franchise. Like, everybody just says, yeah, this is done. Like, I'm not even sure it's gonna get a season 2. Like, that's the thing about this game, is that, like, it's supposed to be going on perpetually. They're supposed to be continually releasing new content for it. Like, they're gonna release a season 2. Like, what? What is it gonna be about? What are they gonna do? Like, I think the word on the street is that, like, people have blasted through the campaign in, like, 10 hours. Let's see, Suicide Squad. Let's see. Yeah, Wonder Woman. Yeah, video game layoffs. Let's see. Yeah, Wonder Woman looks terrible. Yeah, whatever. Okay, it's like. Oh no. Okay. So I wanted to do some more Clownfish TV coverage because I noticed that, like, I did a little bit of research. I noticed they're actually really, really unpopular. Like, I was kind of shocked at how much, like, support I got for my negative coverage of Clownfish TV. So, like, yeah, I think we're gonna start looking at some of their Power World coverage because it has been ridiculous. Like, last night, I was angrier than I had been in a long time because of the stuff they pulled. Let's go ahead and see what they say today.
Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon, not here with Geeky Sparkles in this video. So let's talk about some Power World. Let's talk about some drama with Power World and data miners.
Okay. This is hilarious to me. Okay, so if you've actually seen the controversy, the issue is that data miners have gone through Power World and they found a creature that looks like Mewtwo, right? And I noticed that, like, what the gaming journalists are trying to do is that they're putting the picture of the PAL next to the standard Mewtwo, right? The one that everybody knows, the iconic one, when it's actually a ripoff of, like, Mega Mewtwo Y from the Mega Evolution from X and Y, right? So it's like a different variant of Mewtwo, but, like, I've seen in every, like, piece of coverage of it from, like, the PAL shills, the PAL pals, like, these guys are legit putting these things, like, comparing the PAL to the wrong Pokemon, right? Because we've seen this happen a couple of times, actually. I think it's standard for them, where they put, like, I don't know, like, the Fox thing next to, like, Thievul, and they're just like, look at this, they're completely different. When, like, the Fox thing from PAL is actually a ripoff of Vulpix specifically, like, they've done this a couple of times. I've caught them doing it a couple of times, but, like, I think this is a particularly blatant example of it. Like, I don't know. Like, Mega Mewtwo Y is not a particularly popular version of the Pokemon, right? You have, like, Shadow Mewtwo. Like you have lots of different versions of Mewtwo. Everybody knows like the standard one, but like you have like two Mega Evolutions. You have like Shadow Mewtwo. You have like like there are it's a popular character. Okay, you have a lot of different versions of it, and this but Mega Mewtwo Y was the first Pokemon we saw when X and Y was first announced, right? Like it is like one of the first, like that and Sylveon, right? We knew it was like associated with Mewtwo in some way because of the shape, and like we knew the similarities, but like we knew it was a different like thing, like an evolution or something. Like, and then we like Mega Evolution was introduced, and that's the thing. Like, why are Pals refusing to acknowledge the very real similarities between this specific Pokemon and the Pal? Like I just know before watching this video that like Neon's gonna downplay this, like, oh, they look nothing alike. Yeah, you fucking dipshit, because you're comparing it to the wrong Pokemon.
Apparently uncovering what they believe to be a Mewtwo clone in Power World. This shouldn't surprise anyone. Now, again, we're going to talk about the potential legal entanglement that Pocket Pair could find themselves in. And I personally don't think they're going to get in much trouble. I don't think that. I think Nintendo is fuming because that's a lot of money left on the table that they're not.
How? There are no Pokemon games coming out late. Like we're probably not going to get any until like at the very least. Well, Pokemon Day is next week. Not next week. Next month. So like we're gonna get some announcements. There's gonna be a Pokemon Presents. They're gonna talk about like the year of Pokemon. We're gonna get some announcements. But like when we get a new game at the end of the year, it's gonna be almost a whole year removed from Power World. Like they are not competing against each other at all. And yet there's this narrative that like, oh, it's eclipsing Pokemon. No, it isn't. It's not even close. Like these people really don't understand how big the gap is between Pokemon and Power World. It is honestly kind of sad. Like, it's like, what are you doing? You're covering the news, and yet you don't understand any of the topics you're talking about. You don't understand how big Pokemon is. You don't understand how well the games always do. Like, you don't understand, like, the long history of, like, its competitors. Dragon Quest Monsters, Digimon, Yokai Watch. Yokai Watch apparently has outsold Power World. Like, Yokai Watch 2, like, sold, like, 10 million units. Right, that's more than Power World's last figure update, which honestly I'm not even sure. I'm certain are not real. Like when you look at like what these people say and what they like claim, it's just not true at all. Like their narratives are not realistic. Like today, I saw them try to claim that like Power World has sold like 50 million units. Like straight up like Baldur's Gate 3 shit. Like oh, it's sold 20 to 50 million units. Steam Spy told me. Well, Steam Spy is an unreliable resource. No, it's not. Like it's like again, they're just blatantly making stuff up. And whenever people call them out on it, which I'm sure people have done with this attempt at downplaying the issue between these Mewtwo comparisons, like yeah, I'm really interested in seeing how all of this crumbles down. Because it has definitely stagnated over the past couple of days. Like, nobody's talking about Power World anymore. The player count has, like, dropped by half. Like, the game is, like, being exposed over and over again for, like, plagiarizing assets. The Pokemon Company has commented on it. Like, it's clearly going to happen. Either the Pokemon Company comes after it and they do get it taken down and get some money out of it, or the game continues and people just lose interest naturally because it's not a good game. Like, there is no other options here. Like, that is what's going to happen.
I'm kidding. And there are rumors that Power World is selling substantially more copies than what's being reported, that the community manager is actually being harassed for reporting on the sale.
Substantially more? Are you stupid? Like, no. The game is not that popular. If anything, I'm saying I believe it's selling significantly less that's being reported. Because this game it has not sold 10 million copies in a week. Like, you would be able to tell if it sold 10 million copies in a week. You know, everybody would be talking about it. It would be like the big new popular thing. It's not. Okay? The only reason anybody is talking about this at all is because of the Pokemon comparisons. Like, outside of that, it is not relevant whatsoever.
By Pokemon stands, that's what I'm hearing. But lots of people out there are trying to basically get Power World.
Okay. Neon still doesn't know that the Pokemon Company and Game Freak are different from Nintendo. He doesn't even know who he wants his audience to be mad at. Yes, that is like one of the things you'll notice if you talk to Power World shills, is that they don't know anything about how the Pokemon Company is structured. They don't know anything about like the differences between Game Freak and Nintendo and the Pokemon Company and creatures and like all these different brands. They don't all these different companies, like, they don't know anything about Pokemon at all, right? Like, that's really observable if you like watch them at all. That is like the main takeaway I want you to have here when you're looking at this. Like, when you look at the discourse surrounding this, like when you see them like seriously try to argue that like Pokemon ripped off Dragon Quest, or that like a cartoon wolf would look the same no matter how you drew it, right? Like, you really get this impression that like none of these people at any point were genuine fans of Pokemon, right? They all say they were at one point, but then they got bored of it and just started shilling for Power World, shilling for other brands, right? It's you see this a lot in the community. Like, there is no way these people are actual Pokemon fans.
Gotta get it. We gotta get it. Gotta get it for Nintendo. And look, I mean, a lot of the pals are very, very similar to Pokemon.
No, they're blatantly
they're
plagiarized.
different enough that I don't think there's any brand confusion with individual Pokemon. Let's put it that way.
No. I have seen like close-up images of pals and like mistaken them for certain Pokemon. You know, I saw one that looked like Esper, and like it was actually a pal. Like, I recognized it as an Esper, but it was actually a pal, right? Like, there is no denying that like these models are straight up ripped, and they're like indistinguishable from the originals, right? There are like designs that look somewhat different, like they add ears or something. And then they do that weird Pokemon fusion thing. It's like they put them through a Pokemon fusion generator is the way I look at it. Like, but like you can still see like the assets that are like ripped from certain Pokemon. You can see Lapras, you can see Electabuzz, you can see like whatever, right? Like it's like okay. They ripped a ton of assets. And not just from Pokemon. That's something I've noticed, is that like I noticed one pal has like a Bowser shell. It looks like it was ripped from Melee specifically. Like, you don't see a lot of people talking about that. Like, there's probably a lot more that Nintendo could do to go after Power World. But like, again, it all comes down to Japanese law and like what they did and didn't do. We don't have like the full context. Like, the important thing at this stage though is that like they are similar. Like, let's be real about this. Like, the attempts at downplaying Power World have like downplaying Power World's plagiarism of Pokemon is not working, right? Like, when you're talking every day, like trying to convince people that like, oh, these don't look similar at all. Like, you're deluding yourself, right? Like, every pal shill is like this, but
if I looked at these in a group and I was not familiar with Pokemon, and I saw the trailer and stuff, I would just assume it was a Pokemon game. But that being said, when you tear it apart and you look at side-by-side comparisons, they're very close, but they're not exact. And again, this company,
you can't just change one or two things and then call it an original creation, right? You can't do that. That's not how this works. Like I don't understand why people think they can do this. Like by that logic, Digimon could have easily ripped off like all these Pokemon designs and just like made them slightly different. Like, oh, look at this, a new Digimon. Like, that's not how this works. Okay, like I don't understand why they seriously think they're gonna get away with this. It's like,
He's in Japan, and there are laws, I believe, with fair use and copyright there. And reportedly, the CEO of Pocket Pair did due diligence before releasing the game because they knew the wrath of Nintendo is mighty. Like Nintendo will smack down fan projects, and they will, shut down streamers. They wanted to shut down streamers before for streaming their games. They don't do that
okay, when have they shut down me?
anymore, but they were. So yeah, they're going to try to avoid any entanglements. That being said, they're already getting the card game ready. They already got the merchandise ready. You can buy Power World plushies on Amazon now. They have those ready to go. It's insane. So let's talk about more Power World insanity before we get into it any further. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. Guys, no woo-woos in this video. She'll be back later today. We kind of split up sometimes and tag team. We're working on a lot of different projects this year. You guys have no idea. We can't talk about everything yet, but we are not working on a Pokemon clone. Don't worry. But yeah, so Deserto, I gotta give them a hat tip. They put a couple of things out there. They put this video up showing side-by-side comparisons, pals to Pokemon, and yeah, they're very close. And casuals might think that they're just a one-off or whatever, but again, if Nintendo / the Pokemon Company, whoever, Game Freak, wanted to shut down, or could shut down every other monster catching game, they would have shut Digimon down. And what's Temtem? Is that another one that's out there? But then again, I don't.
Nobody seriously ever talked about Nintendo shutting down Digimon or Temtem or Yokai Watch. That literally never happened. In fact, Nintendo was like very big on promoting Yokai Watch in the West. Right? They were very supportive on bringing Yokai Watch over here. This idea that they're like actively like suppressing monster catching games is like ridiculous. It makes absolutely no sense at all. Like probably the other big brand in Japan that features monster catching or like monsters in general, Monster Hunter, right? That was an Nintendo exclusive for a while, right? That was a big thing for them, right? There was no attempt at like shutting that down. If anything, Monster Hunter like is another example of like monsters and how they can all look radically different. And how yet none of them seem to closely resemble Pokemon as much as Power World does. I wonder why that is. Don't you love how all these YouTubers are all of a sudden Japanese copyright lawyers? I am waiting for like Nick Rekieta to release a statement on Power World. I want him to come out and say, without a doubt, that Power World did nothing wrong. Because then we'll know. We'll know that Power World is going to lose everything. Because Nick Rekieta is always wrong. I'm waiting for it to happen. I'm so excited for him to make a statement about it. Like, I cannot wait. Because that'll be the moment I know that Power World is getting wrecked. But yeah, like I understand your point. Like they don't know anything about the law. They don't know anything about Japanese copyright law. They just say that like, oh, it's the great, oh man, like Nintendo can't do anything. Like, are you serious? Like, yeah, inflating their numbers. Yeah, for sure. Like, I'm not sure. Like, I think it must be possible to inflate numbers on Steam specifically, because has anyone noticed that like it's always Steam that's getting all these crazy numbers? That's like the new thing now is like talk about Steam player counts and talk about Steam purchases, not necessarily purchases from other consoles. Like, isn't that interesting? Like the way they present it is that like Steam is growing in popularity, but like it doesn't really make sense. Like going by like the numbers and like how popular these games should be if they really were selling like 20, 30 million units. Like it just doesn't seem realistic to me, right? It just I I said this about Baldur's Gate 3 as well. Like, the numbers they were like reporting did not make any sense. Like, none. And with Power World, it's like very, very similar. Like, I get the same sort of vibes. Like, it does not feel real. Is my point. Um,
Think that the sales are anything like what Power World is, and Digimon does look what one that's out there. But then again, I don't think that the sales are anything like what Power World is, and Digimon does look. Digimon characters have a certain look to them, I think, that differentiates them enough from Pokemon. In my personal opinion, these are very, very close. But again, I don't think, unless they get busted, lifting the models directly or lifting assets directly from Nintendo,
They did.
I don't think there's going to be an issue. But it's so weird to see Nintendo fans, Pokemon fans, just reaching for so many different. Like, you can say, hey, yeah,
you're not reaching. If anything, it was the Power World community that were harassing Nintendo fans first, right? You won't see me like speaking out all that much against like Yokai Watch or Monster Hunter or Dragon Quest Monsters or whatever, right? For aping on like Pokemon's formula or the monster catching thing. Like, I'll talk about the game's actual flaws and problems and stuff like that. But like, I won't say they don't deserve to exist or something like that. Like, I don't accuse them of plagiarism, like, because they don't plagiarize. Those franchises don't plagiarize. Power World obviously has.
this game looks really close to Pokemon. I love Power World. I love Power World.
Yeah, I can tell you've made like 6 videos about it in the past couple of days, with like diminishing views.
With my son, I love it. I think it's fantastic. It's the kind of Pokemon game I would want to play, where you have open world, free range, weapons, all that cool stuff. That being said, I can't deny that.
Yeah. Okay.
The Pokemon.
Okay, like, again, what? There's this mindset with these people that like, oh, I love Pokemon. I just don't like the gameplay of Pokemon. That doesn't make any sense. Like, grow up. I want Pokemon to be like every other game ever with guns and open world. No, fuck off.
Would want to play where you have open world, free range, weapons, all that cool stuff. That being said, I can't deny that it looks pretty damn close to Pokemon. But again, the courts would have to decide just how close is too close, right? But Pokemon stands, man, they are rabid. They're like, oh, they used AI. This game should be invalidated. Oh, they might have lifted some assets. So if we distort the mesh, to match up with the Pokemon characters enough, what that.
I don't think actual fans were like speculating on AI. That seems like a fake narrative pushed forward by Power World fans, especially with the whole like model thing. Or like, oh, somebody said something about adjusting the models so they look more similar. Okay, but why do they look similar in the actual game then? Like, it's such a stupid thing to like try and get hung up over. Like, oh, someone gets anything. It's legit something that like Anita Sarkeesian would do. It's like, oh, I'm getting threats. Like, it's the same kind of thing. Don't you dare criticize me. Don't you dare, like, I'm being harassed. Like, same exact behavior. They don't want to be called out. They don't want the problems to be addressed. Like, just let us just dance all over your grave, Pokemon. Like, we're bigger than you now, supposedly. Like, it just...
That'll prove our case. Nintendo, don't you know this game's out there? And they actually had to shut it down. They put a tweet out there and they said, hey guys, yeah, we're fully aware that this game came out. Selling as many millions and millions and millions of copies as it has in a very short period of time. Breaking all kinds of records on Steam.
Nobody cares about Steam.
Nintendo is very aware that Power World is out there. And I guarantee you, with every leak, every release, every update, every tweet, their lawyers are probably screen capturing everything to case build. They're probably looking for a gotcha moment. Like, oh, okay, we can't get them for this, but we can get them for that. And that's how these things work. If we get them for that, then we're gonna ask for like umpteen $1 million or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So trust me, they're very, very aware of Pal World, and if they could shut them down, knowing how litigious Nintendo is, I think they would do it in a heartbeat. That being said, let's go back to this thing with the data mining and the Mewtwo-like PAL. And somebody brought up in the comments here on Deserto's post that Caffeine Vaccine says people calling him a Mewtwo Y clone when Snatchmon has been around longer. It kind of looks like Metal Sonic to me. But yeah, it's very much kind of a combination of the two, isn't it? Digimon, once again, getting no representation. Opera says that shit is Mew 3. I gotta like that, man. There's some drama with Opera right now, but they've definitely been getting into it. I think it's pretty funny. Yeah, they're right. I mean, you know, this person here, Papa Ux. Honestly, at this stage, if I was Pal World, I would make my characters as legally similar to iconic Pokemon, just F with Nintendo. Alyssa says, I think this whole controversy is pointless, even if satire games are still satire. That's obvious satire. They have a right to make their game. Yeah. Whether or not
they're gonna hide behind parody law. Does that exist in Japan? Like, I don't know.
A right to make it, whether or not Nintendo's happy about that, are two totally different things. You know. And again, as far as the sales are concerned, Nintendo has no one to blame but themselves. Nintendo's gotten lazy. I mean, you want to talk? You know, some people said that Pal World is lazy, just copying Pokemon designs, pretty much. Nintendo's gotten lazy. It's been, you know, Pokemon games for the most part have been very formulaic, and they have been for years. And I mean, look, I like Pokemon, but I'm like, you play the first couple of generations, and then you skip ahead and you play the newest games. And it's like, yeah, it's basically the same thing it's always been, and that's fine.
You don't play the games, okay? Like, anytime I hear someone say that, I'm just like, no, fuck off. You don't play the games. Like, that is for me like the big filter as to like whether you're like a real Pokemon fan or not, is if you can like distinguish between the differences between the generations, right? Because there are a lot. And like any real fan would tell you that, but no, oh, they're all the same. No. It's so appalling that they're keeping up this narrative, but
it's your thing. But I kind of like the idea of being able to just go out there and find pals, butcher pals, put them in work camps, and put people in balls, and you know what I'm saying? I like that a little bit better. And Nintendo could have given us a Breath of the Wild Pokemon type mashup. They didn't do it, so that's on them. With that being said, let's talk about this latest controversy. Twitter, Mewtwo, the Pokemon company. Pal World Data Mine uncovers a Mewtwo-like Pal as Pokemon copycat saga continues. I'm sure there's something like a Snorlax. I'm sure there's something. Did they find a Psyduck type Pal? Long before Pal World became the cultural phenomenon it is now.
It's not.
This comes from Deserto, so credit to them. It was labeled as Pokemon with guns. And while the early access build we have today bears more of a resemblance to survival games like Ark, yes, it's very much just Ark with Pokemon-type creatures. That's literally what it is. I wasn't really expecting that. I thought it was going to be something more like Fortnite, but it's very much like Ark. The PALs themselves have come under a great deal of scrutiny, with dozens of designs bearing resemblance to those found across the Pokemon franchise. Controversy has been rife to the point the Pokemon Company had to chime in a few days ago. Now, as the record-shattering bestseller looks to keep its momentum up, many are looking to what's coming down the road. According to a supposed data mine, even more eerily similar PALs could be up next. Yeah, they keep releasing new PALs, or images of new PALs, and they do look very similar. So this one could be Mew 3. Pokemon YouTuber, yes, Pokemon fan, Pokemon YouTuber Mewtwo was among the first to share a Pal World design plucked from the game's code. Eurogamer managed to speak with the original leaker Brian Cousins, who accidentally found this particular design while compiling 3D models found throughout the game. Interesting. Why? Why are we doing that? Are they just going?
Yeah, like by calling it a satire, they think they can protect it from copyright law. It's interesting. It seems like a lot of these narratives are coming straight from Pocket Pair to like try and like promote this idea that like the game is legit. Like it's not.
true, or are they looking to see how they match up to maybe help Nintendo? You know, in this instance, it's a dark mutant pal coming into question as the data mine unearthed the creature bearing a striking resemblance to Mewtwo. From its pointed ears to 3 fingers and toes, the PAL design unquestionably takes inspiration from the popular Pokemon. Catching fire on social media for said similarity, Lutu shared the image and stating, "You cannot be serious, man." 3 million impressions later, and the ongoing controversy now has another talking point. Then Deserto put this side by side up. Here's some of the comments. This guy's mad because Pokemon haven't put out good games since Black and White 2. Not wrong. Competition is good.
Completely wrong. Sun and Moon were great. Sword and Shield was great. Scarlet and Violet was great. Legends Arceus, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon DX, new Pokemon Snap. There have been tons of great games since Black and White 2. What are you talking about? The only ones I'll maybe criticize are X and Y. They're my least favorite gens ever. But other than that, what are you talking about? Since Black and White 2, that was a decade ago. Are you delusional? No Pokemon games, no good Pokemon games since Black and White 2. That is completely wrong.
Looks better than Mewtwo? That's just extremely blatantly stolen. No, one is white and one is black. They're not the same thing. They're not. I mean, look, if this were technically though, this were the case, you wouldn't be able to have, comics like Invincible that have, characters very similar to the Justice League. Obviously, each one of them.
They're not that similar. They're not carbon copies.
The characters are kind of one-to-one with DC or Marvel characters. They're just different enough. I'm just saying, so you're allowed to do that.
Well, Invincible shouldn't have been allowed, but okay.
Probably could have a superhero. Well, once public domain kicks in, you can do whatever the heck you want with Superman and Batman, I guess. But for now, if you had a Superman character with reverse colors, and you called him Amazing Guy, and he had a big A on his chest.
There actually are lots of legal issues in regards to comic book characters and their appearances. What's a good example? I know Razor Fist has made a video about that. But yeah, I know Omni-Man specifically had to change his name. Originally it was supposed to be Supra-Man or something. But they had to change it because it was too similar. Right, so they had to change the name, basically. But the concept of being a superhero type character, a Superman-like character that was secretly evil, that was different enough. But that's not the PALs, they don't have that. They're basically just Pokemon, right? That's the issue.
Chest.
They are the characters.
Very, very obviously supposed to be Superman. There's not a damn thing DC Comics can do about it because yours is Amazing Guy. There's no brand confusion. He has an A on his chest instead of an S. So Nintendo's really going to have to, if they thought they could shut this thing down on face value, they would have done it by now. Now, I personally can't wait for the Super Marinera sisters and the adventures of Greta.
You mean the Great Gina sisters, you fucking retard? Why do you not know that exists?
Games from Pocket Pair. Those are going to be great. Those are going to be great. Maybe Hemorrhoid because they're a pain in Nintendo's ass. Well, Power devs have obviously fired back against Pokemon copycat accusations. Millions of players are still debating. And now with the game on the Pokemon Company's radar, trust me, Pokemon Company, Nintendo, they've been aware of this before they even released the game. I mean, damn, they were making the plushies before because they dropped as soon as the game dropped. You could buy the plushies already, so they were ready. It could be a matter of time until legal action is pursued. Maybe, and we know how Nintendo is. Again, ask Atari. Atari bypassed Nintendo's seal of quality with Tengen, and they kind of reverse engineered things, and they weren't supposed to do that, and there was a whole legal kerfuffle. And really, it was Atari's fault because they had the opportunity to bring the Nintendo to the West, and they didn't do it. You know, they passed on us. Then, like, years later, like, can we please make cartridges for your system? You know? So, I don't know, guys. This is some pretty crazy stuff. I thought this was funny, too. This is another tweet from Synth Potato. Power World Discourse in a nutshell. So we have, Demon Souls. Hey, my game is similar to yours. Yeah, let's call them Souls-like. Here we have Hollow Cure and Vampire Survivors, which I freaking love Vampire Survivors. I've never played Hollow Cure, but maybe I need to. Hey, my game is similar to yours. Yeah, let's call them auto shooters. Power World. Hey, my game is similar. Pokemon stands. That's about right. That's about right. That's what I've seen. Now, to be fair, I did a video yesterday where we had a bunch of Power World fans jumping into Nintendo's mentions, into their comments, and trolling them about how great Power World is and how desperate Nintendo was that they were putting out like a freaking 100 Pokemon tweets in a week for Scarlet and Violet. But I'm gonna say Velvet, Scarlet and Velvet, maybe Pokemon Velvet would be.
They're always tweeting about Pokemon. Like, always. The Pokemon Twitter page, that's what they do. Like, come on. Like, there's nothing weird about that.
Game, you know, Pokemon Leather and Velvet. There we go. Those games would sell like hotcakes for sure. I'm gonna wrap it up, guys. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views.
Yeah,
Check out
no.
Clownfish Gaming. We do more gaming news on Clownfish Gaming.
Yeah, he didn't even really talk about like the similarities between the designs. You know, the blatant plagiarism. Like, he just danced around the issues. Oh, Pokemon fans are mad. Yeah, we're mad for a good reason. Dipshit. All right. I think that's everything. Okay, yeah. That's everything I wanted to talk about today. I hope we get some updates on that soon. I'm really sick of hearing about this. Hopefully we get some Pocket Pair BTFO news soon. That'll be really interesting to see. But yeah, until then, I will see you all next time.